Hey folks, welcome back to another week of Patriot to the Core podcast. This is episode number 34, and I am Thad Forster. Thank you for joining us again this week. Before we get to our guest, I want you to know about the Marc Forster Foundation's charity golf tournament coming up on August the 18th at the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And this is the second year they've had it. It's a great event. Last year's was very successful, and I think this year's will even have a better turnout. So if you're interested in playing or sponsoring a team or being an event sponsor, please just go to marcaforster.com and you can find out more about it. But that's August 18th in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So really, really good event. Now to our guest, Mr. Jack Fanning. Jack is a quadriplegic, and he was injured in 2010 in a training accident. He is an Air Force combat controller. He was really at the top of his game, physically, and in special operations. And he had a nighttime training accident when he jumped out of a plane. He had an issue with his night vision goggles, and so he thought everything was okay. Actually, he was improvising well, but he ended up hitting the ground too hard and immediately paralyzed. So we talk about his recovery quite a bit, and some good people and good organizations that have helped him along the way, and also all the good stuff that he's doing now. He and some friends started an organization called Brothers Keepers, where they help take care of our injured military and first responders, and they go on some retreats, and they also take care of the Gold Star families. And I have been a recipient of one of the Brothers Keepers retreats. So this is a really good interview that I had with Jack. He is very positive, and he talks about he just wants to serve and help others and motivate others, because he is very active now. Even though he says he gets his butt kicked every week in therapy, he still is active with skydiving, scuba diving, shooting guns, just hunting. He's skied. He's done all kinds of things, and so he will continue to do that. And he's determined to walk. And so he's already been able to see some progress with some movement in one of his biceps and then his shoulders. So anyway, there's just nothing but good is ahead of him, man. So I think you'll really enjoy the conversation that we have. Well, Mr. Jack Fanning, welcome to Patriot to the Core. I appreciate you being with me finally after it's taken us a while to get together. But how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I have, I first met you several years ago, and I've only known you, since you had your injury. I didn't know you beforehand like my brother did, and like so many people in the special ops community knew you, for so long. But will you just tell us about your injury and what you were doing and what happened?
Yes, sir. Now, I might have met you at Marc's graduation because I was his instructor.
Yeah, I wasn't there. Time. I was not there for that.
You did not come there. Okay. So then that was a few years ago, or I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago when we had that retreat out at the ranch.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, I was an instructor for 3.5 years out at Bragg, where I met your brother. I was his instructor, and then right after those 3.5 years, I went and tried out for one of the Tier 1 units up there, the 24th STS, and that process, it takes quite a long time. You have to get accepted and go in front of a board, and you have to do like a 8 or 9 month course, called Green Team. And if you complete that course, then you get accepted into the unit and you go on to the teams. And it's pretty neat because even as an experienced combat controller from years of experience in deploying multiple times, I felt like I learned quite a bit when I went up to that unit, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. But long story short, towards the end of that course, we were wrapping things up. This was going to be one of our last mission sets for training for the cadre, and so it was a 2-month mission. And the idea was we loaded onto a C-17 at Bragg there, and then we were going to jump into White Sands, New Mexico, set up and do a military free fall, a HAHO, which is high altitude, high opening, in the middle of the night, of course, because we do most things at nighttime so we can gain the advantage. But and we were going to set up a desert landing strip, then land all the aircraft, and we had vehicles and stuff on those transport aircraft. And then we started our 2-week mission set from there up in the mountains of White Sands, New Mexico. So that jump was it's kind of a sketchy jump because you're at a high altitude and you're offset of the target area by, anywhere from 10 to 20 miles. And you do that so that just for that extra stealth where they don't even know a plane is overhead. And so the whole team jumps out, and you immediately pull your chute at a very high altitude, 15 to 20,000 feet usually. And then you fly your canopies as a team using GPS and compass and all sorts of techniques. And it's pretty cool, but it's one of the more dangerous things we do. And during that process, right after we exited the aircraft, upon my chute opening, everything was fine that way. But we did this jump under night vision goggles, so my goggles had come unlodged off my helmet, and I had it dummy corded, of course, but I could not see my teammates, because there was no illume that night, and it was very dark, and so, but my night vision was hanging off my helmet, so what I would do, I didn't really panic. I was cool about it. I had hundreds of jumps before. So I would just let go of my steering toggles and grab the night vision goggles and find the stack is what we call it, basically my teammates, and I would see where they were, and because we're in kind of a formation, and I just kind of stayed clear of them, and then I'd let go of my goggles and grab the steering toggles and steer, left or right, whichever way I needed to go. And usually you're in your harness and under canopy for almost an hour, getting to your target area that you want to land as a team. And so throughout the course of that hour, I just kept the team in sight. I probably did that 50 times or so, grabbing my night vision goggles, putting them up to my eyes, finding the team, letting them go, and then grabbing the steering toggles, and I, just remain clear of them because I didn't want to make contact with anybody else.
Jack, at this time, did y'all have any communication with each other while you were in the air?
Yeah, we're constantly communicating on comms. Okay. Definitely, yes. And I was, I think, number 6 in the stack, and everybody has their role. And there's a team leader, and a compass man that's guiding the team. But so we were on comms. Everything was cool, and I let them know that I didn't have my night vision, but that I was still good to go. But so what happened was, at about 200 feet, you want to start looking to lower your rucksack, and it's tethered to like a piece of nylon that's about 8 feet long, and then when you hear that rucksack hit the ground, you know that you need to flare your brakes, and that you still typically bust ass, but when you flare that, you hit kind of hard, but everything's cool. Well, not being able to see, I thought I was still, 200, 100 feet up. So when I went to lower my rucksack, I was actually just a few feet off the ground, and I smacked the ground going full speed. I had not utilized my brakes at all. So the force of me hitting the ground going about 35 knots and my rucksack still being in front of my legs, I flipped over, I basically hit my feet, then my knees, and the rucksack kind of rolled me over, and then I hit right on top of my helmet, and that pushed my head into my body, and basically my C3 overlapped over the top of the C4 in the neck, and then it had lodged into place. So I was immediately paralyzed. So, and I knew it, as soon as I hit, I knew that something was wrong. And I went to grab for the button to click to tell the team leader I was on the ground, but I could not move anything. So then I realized I was paralyzed and in big trouble because I couldn't check in, because usually you hit the ground, you check in with the team leader, and then you start the mission. But so I could hear everybody talking, but I could not respond. And since we went down the line from jumper 1 to the last jumper, and I didn't respond, so they knew something was up with Fanning, and I could hear them on the radio trying to look for me and stuff and call for me. And it was extremely, when you have an injury like that, it immediately takes away your body's capability to breathe normally. And in the process, of hitting so hard, my right lung had collapsed, and the chin strap on my helmet was choking me. So I laid there. An interesting thing that happened though, when I hit my head on impact, like everything blew off of my helmet. And we got, your night vision, and we have an IR strobe on the helmet and numerous other things. But that IR strobe is only utilized in emergency situations, typically. And it actually, when it blew it off my helmet, it activated that strobe. So it turned it on to the on position, which, is totally a God thing, is what I say. And I laid there just trying to breathe. I was just real shallow, rapid breathing, trying to stay alive. And, I knew I was dying. It was evident to me very quickly that if somebody didn't find me fast, I was going to pass. And so, I immediately thought of my mother, who had passed just a few years prior to this. And so I thought of, my wife and my son. And I was, like, okay, I'm about to go. And, but then in my mind, it clicked like, okay, you cannot let yourself pass out. If I go to sleep now and pass out, I knew I wouldn't waking up. And I wanted to live and be there for my kid, And so I just made myself breathe. I don't know how I did it. And about 15 minutes later, as I'm just fighting for my life and staying alive, for my family, I had my little talk with God, and I asked him, because I knew my best friend Jason, he was right behind me, when we exited the aircraft. So I asked God, would you please let Jason find me? you know, and saved me. And probably about 5 minutes later, Jason, he was, you know, they were all searching for me. He saw that IR strobe in the distance, and he ran over to it, and it was me. And so Jason found me, and so that's the other God thing that helped, you know, that happened. So it was pretty amazing that they were able to find me, and then Jason immediately called for some of the PJs to come over, and they started working on me and cutting everything off me, and called for the medevac. And
Jack, by the way, so while they're working on you,
yep.
Are they all having to wear their night vision goggles just so they can see, I guess? Or do they have lights now, or what?
I don't know, man. I can't really remember that. I remember a few of them just over top of me yelling at me, "Stay alive, keep breathing, you know, help is on the way." And they were just, they went white light at that moment, I'm sure, you know, because this was just a practice mission. But there wasn't a drop zone crew or anything down there. So these were just the guys that were on the jump with me. And so the helicopter got there, and, you know, they had strapped me to a Miller board and prepped me for the helicopter ride. And then got on the helo, and then one of the guys had gotten on there with me, and I guess it was about a 45-minute flight back to we went to El Paso, the military hospital there, and they had to put a chest tube in me because I almost passed away on the helo. And when I got there, it just so happened that one of the neuro docs, the neurosurgeons, was on call, and he was up there. So when I came in, it was just perfect timing that he was there. So they did all the right things. They got me on ice and pumped some steroids into that area, and then they had to put me into traction to pop that C3 back over where it was supposed to be. Miraculously, I did not break one bone in my body.
Whoa.
Which was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, hitting that hard, and the neurosurgeon was amazed that I was even alive. You know, they couldn't believe it. So they performed surgery on me right away, and you know, luckily I was awake for all of that. And then, you know, the last thing I remember is getting off the helo and going into the hospital, and then it went black from there.
Were you unconscious for several days, or, you know, how long were you out of it? Or just a matter of, you know, hours? Or, do you know?
Probably the rest of that night. I think I woke up maybe the next morning. Yeah, after surgery, and it was pretty scary because, you know, I woke up and there were tubes sticking out of everywhere, you know, and a lot of stuff crammed down my throat, and I couldn't talk, couldn't do anything, couldn't move. You know, I could just open my eyes and I could see, but they had me pumped full of drugs, so it was very weird when I awoke. I was disoriented, wasn't sure what had happened. I remember even at one point I thought that maybe I had been captured. I don't know. My mind maybe went back to the war, and I thought they were torturing me, you know.
Oh.
And finally, yeah, because I was so drugged up, I had no idea what was going on. And then finally I kind of came around and came to, you know, realize that, you know, I had had a spinal cord injury and I was paralyzed. So at that moment, the fight was on just to come out of there and do whatever I needed to do.
So what were your chances of living once you made it through that night? Was it still very risky, or did they know at that point you'd live?
Yeah, I was. They never gave me like a percentage, but like I said, the surgeon was very, very surprised that I made it through the night. Or they would have thought that I would have passed out there, right after it had happened. So they weren't sure how I was able to breathe with a collapsed lung and having a spinal cord injury, all at the same time. A lot of people with a high injury like that will pass away, but it was just the tenacity of all the training and years of combat and stuff. I think that enabled me to just suck it up and do what I needed to do and breathe. Plus, I think God had a plan for me. I didn't know this at the time. I realize it now. The longer I'm in the chair, but they never gave me odds, but they were very surprised that I lived. So,
okay.
There's probably an 80% chance that I should have died that night. And then after the surgery, it's just a matter of after that you're good to go.
Jack, I'm wondering when you were laying out there and you were having trouble breathing, and you said there was that moment where you maybe thought you were about to die, but then you thought about your family. And was the feeling, was it like basically you needed to go to sleep? Was that kind of what it was? Or can you describe it?
I could have given up real easily and just passed out. It was like, I could not grab enough oxygen. You know what I mean? So I was breathing like very rapid just to try to get something in there. And so I was going, hypoxia basically is what it felt like. Like when we do training in the altitude chamber and they take the oxygen away and you have to demask, and then you kind of find out what your limits are. And before you pass out, you got to put your mask back on. We do that kind of training all the time. It kind of felt like that. So I could feel myself going. I just had to fight and fight and fight to keep breathing, because I knew if I would have passed out that it was over.
Yeah. So
but it was scary. It was very scary. Yeah.
Yeah. It is so hard for somebody like me to comprehend, and for most of us to comprehend. You got some really cool engineering going on with how you can, talk on the phone and move your wheelchair, and how you can type on your iPad. Will you describe to us what your life is like now?
Oh, wow. It's changed so much from that first year, where you go from being a special operator, being able to do just about anything and do all these wild and adventurous things on a daily basis, to you can't move at all. That could break a man very easily. So I just progressed. Like in the hospital, I spent months and months. They'd have to teach you how to live as a quadriplegic. Nobody knows how to live like that. You never even think that's going to be a situation you'll be in. So over the next few months in the hospital, this one guy kept coming into my room, and he was a C4 quadriplegic just like I was, and he had all this stuff on his chair. Well, I'm laying in bed, not able to move, and people having to shower me and do everything for me. I had to learn how to talk and eat and do all of that. Well, this guy just kept coming back, and telling me, hey, you're going to make it through this, and one day you're going to be like me. Because he was using this long mouth stick to type on his phone, and it had this tray in front of him that he had rigged up. And to me, wasn't thinkable. Like, I was like, this guy's crazy. I don't know how he's doing this. But, when I got out of the hospital finally, I started doing the same thing. I started tricking out my chair. And, I'm still a C4 quadriplegic, and I can't. Now, at first, I couldn't move from the neck down, and now I've got a lot of shoulder movement because I'm still doing therapy on a regular basis and working hard, and I can flex my left bicep. So all that's new, but I still can't move my arms, so they're just laying in arm trays. But what I can use is my mouth, and so I utilize my mouth. So we had a tray cut size and then fastened it to my arm, and it sticks right out in front of me. And I have this long stylus that I use, and it's, I don't know, about 12 to 14 inches long. And so I have my iPad and my phone on that tray, Velcroed on there, and I use that mouse stick to control my phone and iPad. So, and then the technology with the chairs nowadays is I do everything on the sip and puff chair. So I have this other thing that comes around to my mouth, and when I blow into it or suck into it, it gives the chair different commands on what to do. And then you just kind of memorize it. And it's like driving a car. After you do it for a while, you do it subconsciously. And then I rig like water on it and different things. So over the years, I've just evolved and kind of, thought things out. What can I do here? And you just got to be creative with it. And I sit in my chair every day. I have wonderful caregivers that come over and get me ready every morning. It's a very long process. It takes hours because I got to go to the bathroom and shower, and I need help to do all that. And so I have a little routine. I do all the things necessary to get up and into my chair and brush my teeth and do my hair and, on and on and on, just everything you would normally do, but I have to have somebody do it for me. And then once I get all set up in the chair, just how I want, then the rest of the day, I'm pretty much doing most tasks by myself, as far as being on phone calls or on the internet, on email, working my television. I can work my house now. I've got a smart home through Vivint security systems. They set me up so I can control certain things in my home. And so I live pretty good. I mean, and then for me, part of my work is, my job is to continue doing therapy and try to get something back. I'm not just going to be satisfied with staying in a chair. I want to walk. So I've worked my ass off 3 days a week at therapy. And they kick my butt about 2-hour sessions. And so I'm still after it. And then after a few years of, being in a chair and not really having, I was just fighting for my life and figuring out how to live. Well, me and my friends started getting together again because I had moved back home to Texas. And that's when we had started this nonprofit. And we came up with the name Brothers Keepers. And that kind of has driven me now So that's also my job, is to work on that nonprofit and try to help other veterans and first responders and their family members, pay it forward and try to help them out any way we can. And that gives me, the purpose in life, and keeps me going, really.
Yeah, how did what do y'all do in Brothers Keepers? Like, what are some specific things you've done? And because I've taken part in an event before. And then I heard a story that I think it seems like the way you kind of got started is y'all were at a restaurant, or y'all been meeting there, and people started asking you questions, and then they started giving you money, and you're like, okay, well, and then you kind of came up with a name. Did it kind of come together real fast?
Well, when I was younger, we had a group of guys that right out of high school, we would always get together and have a guys' night out, and we'd dress up and go to a fancy restaurant, and we would all chip in a little bit of money and for whatever charity we decided. And like one time, I think we had actually even bought a wheelchair for a lady. And so we would kind of do that every couple of months. And then I went off into the military, and then 13 years later, I got injured in 2010, and so I came back to Texas, and me and some of the same guys started getting back together, and we would chip in and give money to the local food banks or to Wounded Warrior Project, or a veteran organization that gives back. And like you said, that one time we were at a restaurant, and some ladies had come over and said, "Hey, what are y'all all about?" And we're just like, "Well, we're just getting together. My friend Jack was injured in the service, and then we're raising a little money, and we give it to charity." And then I think they wrote us a check for $100 or something. And then other people started coming over and writing us checks. And I think we made like $1,300 or something that night, which was crazy to us. It was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And so it kind of sparked an idea, hey, maybe we can actually make something of this and start an organization, a nonprofit. And so we thought about it and came up with the name Brothers Keepers, and which we thought was a great name, which it is. And so we just gave it a shot. We didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we're still learning to this day. And what we do is we take injured veterans, doesn't matter if it was combat related or not, just any veteran that we think could use a retreat, and now we've been including first responders, and then the big part with us is family. So we want the family to be involved in whatever activity we do. So these retreats are pretty cool because we started down at the ranch that you're familiar with, Granite Ranch. It's a huge ranch that has tons of things to do, lots of animals, and you can shoot guns out there. We can hunt, swim in the pool for the kiddos. They got a pool there. There's a big game room, and then a big fire pit that we gather around, and we have live music and kayaking and all. And now we're doing free fall tandem jumps out of a helicopter while we're down there. So we're doing fun activities that maybe injured guys and their families wouldn't think they'd be able to do. So adventurous, sporting activities and stuff like that. And I try to do everything right along with everybody else because I'm a high quad, so you wouldn't think I'd be able to do any crazy things like that. But so I try to do all that kind of stuff to inspire, the other guys that are maybe sitting around their houses and they're depressed and going through hard times and they don't want to get out and do things. Well, you know, I'm right there, not able to move my arms or legs, and I'm able to jump out of an airplane, you know, or ski or whatever we do, and that draws inspiration, and then they're able to do it with their family, and that's the beauty of it. Their kids get to do these fun activities with their dad, you know. Mm-hmm. And then we also the Gold Star families, we include them, and you know, because they're always hurting very bad when you lose your son or daughter, you know, in combat. It can be extremely tough, and it is very tough on the family. So we include everybody and bring them out there, and it's very, you know, I found that it's very therapeutic for all these guys to come together and do these fun activities, because you go there, you know, not necessarily knowing some of the people that are there, and you come away with it being family. And you really open up to some of the other guys and tell your story and your struggles, and that's very therapeutic. You know, and we like to have a good time while we're doing it. So we started going to the ranch once a year, and now we've evolved where we're going up to Utah once, maybe twice next year. But we did a ski trip up in Park City, Utah this year, and it was a huge success. So we got Gold Star families up there, and some guys in wheelchairs, spinal cord injuries, some traumatic brain injury guys, a couple of police officers that had been shot, and an amputee, and all their family members, and they were all skiing on the slopes of Park City, Utah. It was phenomenal. Everybody loved it, and we had a blast.
So how did y'all do that, Jack, with the skiing, with the guys that were injured, including you? How did you physically make that happen?
It wasn't us. I got lucky and met an outfit up there called the National Ability Center, and that's what they do. They let people with disabilities, not necessarily in the military or veterans, but anybody with disabilities, they get them to do in sported activities like mountain biking, water skiing, snow skiing, horseback riding, you name it, archery. They do it all up there. And they, you know, we had met them and visited their facility, and they invited us to come up and do a retreat up there. And I'm so glad that we accepted that offer. And so they do all the stuff for us. We just show up with all the wounded guys. And it was amazing. They have a whole crew of instructors on the mountain that's what they do, you know. And so they have these special chairs that they put us in for the guys that can't, you know, walk or anything. And it has like these outrigger skis on it, and then there's an instructor behind you, and you're tethered to them, and they let you go, and they kind of assist you in turning left and right. But for the most part, you're skiing yourself. Well, I didn't know, but while we were up there, it was a surprise to me, but they busted out the only sip and puff ski chair in the world, and it just happens to be up there in Park City. Wow. And they presented it to me on the last day, and I got to ski down the mountain unassisted with my mouth, using my breath. So just like my chair moves with sipping or puffing, the same thing with this thing, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Man, that's cool.
But yeah, we had a great time.
So this is the National Ability Center, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're wonderful, wonderful.
Well, and that's some of the
Man,
best skiing in the world right there. So, I mean, Park City. That's
yeah,
you're going to a
yeah.
good spot.
And you'd be surprised how many disabled people were on that mountain skiing. Not even with our group, you know. I mean, it was crazy. But so yeah, they made it to where it was just a fabulous trip. It was a home run out of the park for sure.
Wow.
So we're going to go back, but they want us to come back in the summer also, and do other type like white rock water rafting, mountain biking, and water skiing and stuff. So we might take them up on that offer, and we might just do 3 retreats next year. So we're growing and expanding, and it's been quite a ride. It's really given me a purpose, you know, and a sense of accomplishment to help out these families.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been great. I love it.
So what's next for you, Jack? Because you keep doing this, and you're doing your therapy, and you're making progress. I mean, what's the next adventure you want to do that you haven't done, or what's your plans?
Right now, I'm really, really focused on helping other veterans and first responders, you know, and I'm trying to help others. You know, I have a good life right now, and I'm very happy, and I'm never going to stop training and working out, and you know, trying to get to where I can move one arm or both arms, or walk maybe one day. That, you know, that's what I'm ultimately striving for. But right now, I'm really focused on helping others through our nonprofit Brothers Keepers, and it's growing to be quite big. So we're having to deal with growing pains right now, because it's just a handful of us that, you know, are making all this happen. So, but it's been great. I mean, so my future goals are just to help others that are in a bad way right now. And, you know, what's really been on my mind is all the PTSD, and guys are really suffering, and it's hard for them to admit that they're suffering. You know, you don't want to tell people something's wrong with your head. And, you know, so these retreats can really, like I said, be therapeutic to guys like that. And, you know, if we can help them out just by talking to them and saying, hey, man, I've been struggling just like you, and this is what I do to stay busy, and, you know, I want to tackle that animal, you know, and nobody really knows how to help the guys that are struggling like that, but all we can do is try. So I've really been focused on that. And then my son, Brock, you know, he just turned 12, so he's big into soccer, which is great because I grew up playing soccer. That was like my big sport. So, you know, I get him every other week and go watch him play, you know, practice, and then go to his games and stuff. And me just being there for him is hopefully teaching him some life lessons that no matter how down and out you are, and even if you're paralyzed, you can still be there, you know, for your kid.
Yeah. What do you do, Jack, when I'm sure you have good days and bad days. So what motivates you or helps you to get through the tough days?
Try to stay positive, you know, and I've always been a scrapper and a fighter. There's always days that, you know, my butt is hurting because I have like chronic pain in my tailbone area, and it hurts pretty bad, you know. But I've gotten to where I can mentally kind of block that pain out, and then, you know, obviously I have some, you know, pills and stuff that I can take when it gets really bad. But I don't really even get down that often. I did in the early days, the first few years, you know, you feel sorry for yourself and you're not sure what people are thinking. And then, you know, I just said, screw it, I'm attacking life and I'm going to go do challenging things to stay busy. And that keeps me motivated, and it seems to motivate everybody else around me. So, you know, I don't want to just sit around. I want to enjoy life and have fun along the way. So positive attitude, you know, is the biggest thing for me. And sometimes you just got to get up and do it. You know, so some days you don't want to necessarily do anything, and you just got to make yourself do it. And then what?
Yeah, I want people to see the video.
Yeah.
The jackrabbit. What is that about? I saw that. It's been a few years now, it seems, or maybe over a year. But man, I want the listeners to watch that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. If you go on our website, which is www.brothers-keepers.org, then you'll find that video on there. And I think we had been invited to this short film little festival, and they were showing about the equine therapy and how horse therapy can help out numerous people. And then we met one of the producers, and then he met me, and we got to talking, and he wanted to do a story on Brothers Keepers and how all that came about. So we were about to do a retreat down at the ranch. So they brought their film crew down there. And so if you watch that documentary, it's about 20 minutes long. And they interview, you know, me and my dad and some of the guys that started Brothers Keepers. And then they interview some of the families out there, and gives you an idea of kind of what goes on at the retreats, and then how all this got started, you know. So they did a wonderful job on the documentary.
Yeah.
And they actually want to do a second part where they're filming me. They originally wanted me to get on a horse, you know, talking with all the therapists and people, since I'm a high quad and I can't really balance on a horse. It's illegal to, you know, they're not able to strap me onto that horse, because if the horse took off, that would be big trouble, right?
Yeah.
So we were going to attempt that, and they were going to film that, and that didn't work out, but they came up with a brilliant idea. And so this is in the works. They're going to start to train me on basic horsemanship. So even people that cannot physically ride on a horse, this equine therapy place that we found is going to teach me. I already did one class about how to control the horse using my voice and my chair and stuff. And so you go through these training sessions, and I did one session, and I think we're going to do it full board in October, and they want to film that process of me learning how to control these big these horses. And that can be therapeutic, which I found out on day one. I mean, after a half hour of doing this, I was commanding horses to come to me or back away or follow me with my chair. It was crazy, but it's true, man. Those horses are so, I don't know, they kind of like bond with you, and they look down into your soul, and they make you feel at ease. So I can see why, you know, people that have seizures or, you know, stroke patients or any kind of disability, Down syndrome, or just a guy like me that's you know, has spinal cord injury, that, or if you got PTSD or something, that horse, having that relationship with the horse can really help. And so I'm looking forward to doing that, and they're going to do a little mini doc on that, so who knows what'll happen there. But it'll be fun.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. That's incredible. I mean, just how you can adapt so many different sports to to what you can do, and that just blows me away. I never would have thought about controlling horses like that.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So, Jack, what kind of advice do you give? I mean, you talked about being positive and just getting up and doing it. Is there anything else that advice you give to people who are struggling, whether it's military or non-military?
Yeah, for me, something real therapeutic is just talking about what happened, your particular injury, how it happened, like what we did today. It's very therapeutic to talk about it and get it out there, and especially with other guys that might have similar injuries as you and have a family, and because it doesn't just affect you, it affects your spouse, your kids, your family members around you, your friends. I mean, it's a pretty big circle of people that it affects. And so the whole dynamic of your family, changes. And, the caregiver thing. And so to me, just talking about things can help a lot, especially guys that are going through similar situations. Because then they will return to you, yeah, man, I've been struggling with that also. And so you realize, hey, I'm not alone in this. And then you can give each other advice on, how to get through things. So talking to your peers, can help quite a bit, I think.
Do you know if the guy that was in the hospital there right after your injury that was motivating you, have you talked to him, and does he know what all you're part of now?
Oh yeah. We stay in touch. He actually sells me these sticks, the mouth stick that I use to control my iPad and phone. Yeah, he actually I guess he has a little business where he sells them, and so I buy them off of him. And anytime I go back to Atlanta, I haven't been in a while, but if I go to Atlanta, I'll see him.
Okay. Man, yeah, 'cause see, you're doing what he did, and it sounds like
exactly.
you're doing it on a pretty big scale now, and how you're able to help so many people. And one thing I thought about, Jack, was how did your injury affect your family? Because I think you went through a divorce after your injury.
Yeah, it was rough. My wife was working full time, and she went from that, and being the wife of an operator, to full-time caregiver. And, nobody really tells you exactly, how you're going to get through all that. So, I didn't realize it, but I was burning her out, because with my particular injury, it's 24/7. I've got to have somebody with me at all times. And, you got to feed me constantly. You got, if I just want to reposition my butt, I have to have somebody do it. So it's a constant job, and it's hard. I've learned over the years, being a caregiver is really, really hard thing, and I don't think that they get enough credit. All the caregivers out there. And so my wife was doing everything on her own for a couple of years there, and it just really stressed out our relationship. To me, she wasn't my wife anymore. She was my caregiver. And then, and I went through my struggles in the beginning where I, didn't want to come with grips, that I was paralyzed. So I was going nuts trying to do everything I can. I want to go here and go there, and do all these crazy things to prove to everybody that I can still function. And it wore her out, and it wore our relationship out. And we're still really good friends, and she lives real close to me, and we're great friends, and we still hang out, and she still helps me. And I've learned through the years to use multiple caregivers to help me out, because I've gone through quite a few, since my injury 7.5 years ago. And so I've learned the more the merrier. You gotta give them a break, and we didn't know that, and it took the experience of going through it to figure that out. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for us, but we're still very tight and, very active with my son. And so things are okay. But yeah, you need help. That's the advice that I would give guys that are in chair, that are paralyzed. You got to hire extra caregivers, whatever it takes.
What role has the Air Force played in your recovery?
Yeah, speaking of that it's a lot of money, to get care like that. And the VA, and the Air Force and stuff have really helped me out. It was kind of rough in the beginning, but I'd say over the last 5 years that the VA has gotten considerably a lot better, or quite a bit better as far as the Dallas VA goes. And that, they support me with giving me a check every month, and then there's other caregiver programs within the VA that actually me and my ex-wife found, and we utilize that. So they'll actually give you extra money, like a stipend program. It's for your live-in caregiver.
Okay.
And for bowel and bladder and stuff like that. So I've gotten pretty much everything that I need to live through them, which it would be pretty rough if I didn't have that steady income coming in from them.
Yeah.
Now they're not going to go out of their way to, try to make me walk. They're kind of just, they want to keep you,
comfortable.
I don't know, comfortable. Yeah, comfortable. But they're overwhelmed with how many patients that they have and people that they got to help out. So that's why you got to go look elsewhere as far as like therapy and stuff. And I found a phenomenal neurological recovery center is what it's called, down in Fort Worth, Texas. And I go there 3 days a week, and they kick my butt. But they've got crazy equipment there. And I don't know, one of the things is called a locomat, and you might have seen a video here and there of me. You actually get in this robotic thing, and then it helps you walk on a treadmill.
Yeah, I saw it.
So so I walk 3 days a week, and then they got other things that I do. But yeah, so that's fun. I love going to therapy. I give it 120%, and it's like feel like I'm working out again, Not in the same capacity, but I am working out.
Well, Jack, and maybe in closing, what advice do you give, or would you give to young guys who are going into spec ops?
Obviously you have to be in shape. The better shape you're in physically, the easier to be on you mentally. But I'd say it's 80-20 split. 80% actual is mental. That there's a lot of people that could physically do it, but those couple of years, it's an ass kicker. But when your body wants to quit, you have to override that with your mental, thinking and fortitude on it and staying strong. So, a lot of times it's got to be the right type of dude, with the right personality, to make it through these things. But so being mentally tough and having the attitude of never quit is huge. That's what I tell guys that are thinking about doing it. You gotta take it on head on and say, you cannot make me quit. I'll never quit. Bring it on, And that's the attitude you have to have. As soon as you start doubting yourself, man, you're gonna go downhill from there. But obviously you gotta be able to swim good and have cardio for days. But the mental side of things is where you need to be strong. So It's hard to really teach that. You either have it or you don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, in closing, I guess maybe we should wrap it up. But is there anything else that you'd like to say?
To all the guys out there, that are struggling, in whichever way it might be, and your family, stay motivated, stay as positive as you can, and get up every day with a good attitude and attack that day, take it one day at a time. And, if you need help, ask for help. Don't sit there and, go on and on and on, and keeping it in. You need to ask. And there are tons of organizations that have helped me out. And, I was so motivated by that I started my own nonprofit, and there's a lot of organizations out there that you can reach out to, whatever your struggle might be, and talk to your brothers and other people that are going through similar situations. And, don't be scared to ask for that help that you need,
Yeah. Man, I really appreciate your time, Jack. This has been just super motivating, and I think a lot of people will get, just find a lot of benefit out of hearing from you, whether they're, in your shoes or have been in a situation like yours, or, military, or just, the other listeners, the plenty of civilians that we have listening to the podcast too. So thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it, sir.
Appreciate you listening to my interview with Jack Fanning. I thought it was pretty awesome, and I just have a few things to ask of you. I try to spread out my request, so I don't ask them on every episode, but two things. One would be go to iTunes and please rate the podcast. And number two, preferably just go over to the far right, and hit the 5 stars and then write a review. And secondly would be check out Patreon. We are now on Patreon. That would be patreon.com/Patriot to the core. So patreon.com/Patriot to the core. It's a forum where podcasters like me can get support from listeners like you. If you like the content that I provide, then you have the opportunity to support my work financially on a monthly basis. But you can read all about it. I've got a short video there, and it's very minimal amounts. If you're interested, you can do $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. That's the way I've got it broken out right now, and you can see what I'm looking to do. I do want to improve the podcast. I'd like to upgrade my equipment. I'd like to improve my logo because I think it's pretty pathetic. And there's a few more things as well. I'd like to upgrade my website. But, those things take some additional funds, and I just am asking for that from listeners like you. So trust me, you need this. Just go sign up. It's pretty simple, and you'll get some things in return. I mean, I'll provide some, insider access, some early, you'll get early access to my podcast interviews and some other things as well. A signed copy of my book and different specifics. I won't list them all now, but if you just go to patreon.com/Patriot to the core, you could read all about it and become a patron and support what we're doing here. So thank you for considering.